welcome to the Cheer Up Podcast. I'm your host, Kara Hunt, and with me today, this morning, as always, is my lovely co-host, Sherry Swalwell. How are you this morning, Sherry?
I am doing fantastic. I got to tell you, Kara, I love going outside. We have to take our dogs out on a leash because of where we live. We don't have a fence.
Mm-hmm.
And we just won't let them run around in the neighborhood because I'm not sure if they'll come back. But I love hearing the birds in the morning. Like, I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of May. It's just so beautiful. It's so warm. And the birds are just breathtaking.
I know, and I have, some people are considered, when people have like a lot of particular animals, like for instance, someone may say, "Oh, that's the cat lady,"
Oh, yeah.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, I'm wondering if my neighbors call me the bird lady. Because I have I'm almost embarrassed to admit it. I have about 15 feeders.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
awesome.
I love just bringing them to me. Obviously, God feeds all the birds of the air, right? And all, and everything else. But because I think my son had asked me that when he was, younger, what would happen if we didn't feed the birds or something like that. I'm like, oh, God takes care of them. I was like, I just want them to come to me so I can see them up close,
Right.
and personal. And so we are able, to see, all the different birds and the backyard birds is, like what they call them, your blue jays, your cardinals, your finches, your titmouse, um, and all of the others, because seasonal, like you say, in the spring, you get so many other different ones, and, your greckles, I think they're called,
Oh, yep,
and
yep.
everything. I love them, and then they are just coming. You know what I love the most? This is okay. I'm such a sap, but it's like I love to see them feeding each other. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like yeah, because from where I have some of the feeders set up, from three windows in my house, from my kitchen window, from my great room, and from the bedroom window, I can see them. That's why I have all these feeders, right? So it's like I can see them, and I love to see when the bigger birds will feed the baby birds, you know, and when the birds are the same size, I call them lovebirds, but technically they're not lovebirds, but when they're just feeding, and taking care of each other, and I'm like, God's creatures are just so amazing, and they're so
They really
beautiful,
are. They are.
and they are, and I love them, and but I like I said, they probably call me the bird lady or something. But if they do, I'm not offended. I'm not offended. It's okay. I gladly accept that moniker. But the other thing that I love about this morning is that we have wind, a slight wind. And a couple of years ago, someone gave me some beautiful wind chimes, and oh my goodness, they sound so beautiful in the mornings. When the wind is
I
blowing.
love the sound of wind chimes. You're right. Now,
Yes.
going back to the bird conversation, I have a confession to make. So,
Uh-oh.
first off, two things. Well, two things. One, we've got to become neighbors because you and our youngest will get along so good. And two, I did not know the difference. Okay, that's going to sound really stupid. I did know that there were lots of different birds out there, but when they were flying around, I couldn't tell the difference between one bird over another until
Right.
our youngest got so into them. And now I can look around and see, and I can even tell some of the different sounds too. So he has taught me a lot.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it took a long time because when I'm telling you, before he was around and interested, a bird was a bird was a bird. But not anymore. They are so beautiful. They are
And
just gorgeous.
majestic.
There's so many, yes, and there's so many different kinds. I think my favorite is still hands down the Baltimore Oriole because they're orange and I love the color orange. But I also love, we don't get to see them very often, and I haven't seen one yet this year. Oh, what are they called? Come on, Sherry. The indigo bunting. Oh my gosh.
Oh yes, aren't they beautiful?
Yes.
They are so
But I
gorgeous.
love the sound of the chickadee. Chickadees, they just have their own unique call or sound or whatever you want to call it. Oh, I
Yes.
love chickadees, or the sound of chickadees. But I love the colors of the oriole and the indigo bunting.
And the indigo bunting, and they are just so beautiful. And then and that's the whole purpose we have like the feeders, right? Because we want to see them up close because they fly so high.
Absolutely.
They fly so
You have
high,
to have,
and so yeah.
and you have to have the different kinds of feeders, because a hummingbird feeder is different from a regular feeder, and some of the birds don't like the sunflowers, and the other birds don't like the other stuff. So you got to have the combination so that they all come.
Okay, so that brings up another funny story. Because my hubby, he was getting on me about how much we were spending on bird feed because I know my birdies, right? They like the real real fruit, and real nuts and real seeds, right? And so those tend to cost just like a little bit more at the pet store, wherever you get your pet food from. And he wasn't happy about that. Like, before, like, he didn't care much about the price because I didn't really tell him. But then when he started spending more time at home, he became more aware. He's like, how are you feeding these birds? You know how much this bag is? And so when I'm like, yeah, but they love it. They don't like the other stuff, and everything else. And he's like, phooey, listen, we're not going to spend all this money on this type of bird food, right? I was at the hardware store the other day. I saw bags of bird seed or bird food for like a quarter of the price of what you pay. He's like, I could get, he said, I just get that, and everything else. And, a food is a food, a seed is a seed, or whatever. If they're hungry, they'll eat. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm like, they're not going to like it. I'm telling you, it's not going to work. He's like, yeah, whatever. So he goes and he gets it, and he puts the seed in the feeders, and everything else. And then they completely ignore it. Okay. They don't eat it. Okay. So I'm like, yeah, have you noticed that food hasn't moved in a bit? And, he's like, yeah, they're not eating. I'm like, it's not like I didn't warn you, and everything else. And it, every now and then he would see some birds out there or whatever. He's like, well, I think they're eating it and everything else. But then some weeks went by and it was sitting there, and rain had gotten to it and everything else. I'm like, you need to like go out there and, at least scoop some of that stuff out, put some fresh one in. He goes out there and he comes back in and he goes, those birds, he said they were mad. I guess they really didn't like the food. I'm like, why are you saying it? He said they rioted. He's like, they picked out my security lights. They made a mess of this and they did that. He was like, oh my goodness. He was like, I guess birds' lives matter. He was like, because he was he's like, they made a complete mess. He's like, they actually picked out my stuff, and everything else. He said they tore something else up. And the first thing I thought of, right, is I don't know if you've ever heard of or seen the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds.
I have heard. I've never seen it, but yes. Oh my God.
Yes. And it's like, and apparently there's a game out there. I guess that people play mobile on your mobile phones or something called Angry Birds. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, man, they just kind of tore off the place out there. And I'm like, see, I told you they wouldn't like it. He's like, now I'm going to replace my light. He's like, all this other stuff. I was like, I told you. He's like, no, it's your fault. You didn't spoil the birds. He's like,
oh, that is hilarious.
I know. And I'm like, I told you, and everything else. So now he went back to, fine, we'll buy the fancy stuff that you were talking about, but they're not going to get fed as often, okay? He's like, once they eat it up, they're going to wait another week, okay? We're not just going to replenish it every time they, come knocking at the windows and stuff. So anyway, it's for those of you who didn't know, birds have personalities.
They really do.
And apparently they have preferences too. So like Sherry was saying, they all have their own thing. Like I say, some like the sunflower seeds, some like the berries, um, and some like the smaller nuts, some like to crack open their nuts, the seeds, I'm sorry, and everything else. So yeah, and doesn't it make for such entertaining watching? You know,
It really
it just
does.
it really does. You get to watch them and see how they interact, with each other, and and all these other things. So yeah. So for all of you out there who listen to Cheer Up podcast, we probably just told you everything you want to know about backyard birds. Or our bird obsession, right? So, hey, Sherry, you're right. If we were next door to each other, right, we could call it Birdland. That would be fun.
Exactly. We would just combine our different bird feeders, make sure that you buy the one kind, I buy the other kind, and we'd be good.
And we all be good. We have our hummingbirds, our hummies, our birdies, and our wind chimes, and yeah, we probably talked about all over neighborhood apps.
Exactly.
But hey, that's okay. It's just me, my birds, and my chimes, and we're all good. So I'm gonna leave it at that, because honestly, I could go on and on and on about my love and my fascination for birds and everything. So, but we're gonna stop there. But you know what? It actually does kind of feed into our topic today: encouragement.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah, it actually feeds into that. So today's topic, everyone, we're actually going to talk about encouragement and how to be encouraged. And so we hope that today, like when you leave, when the podcast ends, that you're able to just be encouraged, and not only be encouraged, but be able to encourage others as well. And speaking of encouraging, we want to thank all of you, all of our listeners, for encouraging us. And by that, we mean by the love you continue to show us on social media, by all of you who continue to listen, follow, and subscribe on all major social media platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, all of those places we're on. And we're also on all forms of some of the major forms of social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Speaking of Facebook, we are also now, you can also listen to the Cheer Up podcast on Facebook on your mobile phones, though it's not available for desktop yet, but it is available on your mobile phones. So if you ever, have your mobile phones with you and you have the Facebook app, just go to the audio podcast section, and you can go there and type in Cheer Up Podcast. And not only can you listen to it, but you can minimize the little bar there, the little mini player. You can minimize it, and you can listen to the Cheer Up podcast while you're scrolling through your Facebook pages and enjoying and reading your friends' posts, and you're going to your favorite pages, reading your articles. You can do all of that and listen to the Cheer Up podcast all at the same time. How cool is that, Sherry?
That is awesome. That is incredibly awesome. There's nothing I love better than being able to listen to something in the background that's encouraging and that builds me up and that makes me that strengthens my faith than when I'm doing things that I can listen to something else in the background, things that don't take all of my mental attention. But instead of just sitting there and and not, just kind of having the white noise or whatever, I love being able to, in the words of an evangelist that I admire, strengthen my inner man.
Oh, yes. And it's because, sometimes not everything we come across on something like Facebook is positive, right?
Agreed.
Especially with so much going on in the world, but I know a lot of people use that type of platform to keep up with current events and different things that's going on. So how awesome would it be to, like, you're watching the news, you're reading the articles, or you're reading something about what's going on currently, but at the same time, you're listening to an encouraging podcast.
Exactly.
At the same time. So it kind of helps you not get caught up into that doldrums, and be so depressed about what's going on in the world, and everything else. So it's really awesome feature. I'm usually not that excited about technology, but I just really think that that's an awesome feature, that you can have. And by being on your mobile phone, it's portable. You can take it with you,
Well,
and everything.
It takes 10 positives to overcome one negative. So if you're scrolling on Facebook and you're seeing all kinds of negative things on there, just think, if you listen to one or two of the podcasts, I think you'd get yourself back to normal or back to baseline.
Oh, absolutely, right? And people will be like, did you not just see that post I sent you? Why are you in such a good mood? Did you not read the article? Did you not see the meme?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you not see my comments? And you're like, I'm all good. I don't know. It's like, why aren't you, all up in a roar about this? And it's like, I don't know. Well, see, that's because you were listening to an encouraging podcast that gets us to focus, on something higher than what's going on down here on this terra firma, on this earth, So for those of you who have your mobile phones or whatever, yes, we just want to let you know. And also, just like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and all those others, you can actually subscribe via Facebook. So for those of you who are new to it and you go to your mobile app, you can, once you go to the audio podcast tab, and it's going to give you the option to subscribe. And all you got to do is click it. And then I believe they send you notifications just like all the rest of them when a new podcast is out, which is every Wednesday morning. So anyway, just want to share that one because that's kind of new, and just want to share that with everyone. So just that little bit of encouragement. And so today, again, like I said, we are going to be talking about how to encourage others, and Sherry, what is one way that you like to encourage others?
Well, I think you started us off great because you gave us the very first way to encourage others, and that was through the Cheer Up podcast, listening to it on Facebook while you're scrolling. So,
oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So that was awesome. I think that I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to tape with you today. And I was thinking about the different ways to encourage. And there are definitely different seasons of encouragement. I was having a conversation with my mom last night, and both of us were talking about the different seasons of serving. And my particular family, my immediate family, we used to serve in our church regularly. And God kind of has us in a season right now where we're serving people, individual people, instead of serving in our church body. And I was telling my mom, coming from a legalistic Baptist background, not that all Baptists are legalistic and not that all churches are legalistic, but growing up in that background, in that philosophy or whatever, I was feeling guilty because I was like, oh man, we're not serving in our church. We're not giving God what God wants. We're making him angry, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, nope, you know what? I'm not going to feel guilty about this because we're serving in other areas and other ministries and we're blessing other people instead of just blessing the church. The church has people right now, and they don't need us. Not that the church doesn't need us. Let me rephrase that because that came out wrong. What I'm trying to say is that there are seasons and times for everything. And I believe that we will have a season of serving in our church again. But right now, in our family, there are specific individuals that we need to be serving instead, that we need to be focusing our time on instead. And in order to do that, we have to be flexible. And in order to be flexible, we can't be, our schedule can't be so tight that there's no room for wiggle room. So I used to, and I love this. One of the ways that I found that I could encourage people was our youngest and I, when he was in elementary school, I had so many friends that were his teachers, that were like the special teachers, the principal, the secretary, so many people at his school that I just absolutely loved and I connected with, that I was like, how can I encourage them every morning? Well, once a week, I would make either banana bread, cookies, something, and muffins, and we would take it to the school and we would give it out. Well, instead of, I don't like to leave anybody out because that's just me. So we would start to do it to any of the teachers that wanted it. So when I would make bread, I would have, I think I would make like 4 loaves. I would leave 2 loaves with my family, and I would cut up 2 loaves, and then we would take it and we would give it out to whoever wanted it. Not all the teachers wanted it. Some of them, for diets or food issues or things like that, they would say no, or maybe they just don't like it. And that was fine. It wasn't like we were forcing it on anybody, but whoever wanted it was welcome to have it. And I got to know so many people that way. I felt like I was able to bless them and be Jesus's hands and feet that way. And he's in the middle school now, and I really miss that time. I miss being able to do that. I miss connecting on that small level. I miss just being Jesus's hands and feet, just being there. So that was one of the ways that I absolutely love to bless people. Today, when we're done painting, I'm going to be making some brownies. I used to babysit. I used to run a daycare, and the older brother of a girl who goes to our youngest school, her uncle just died last week, and I wasn't able to make it to the viewing because our youngest had a concert at the same time, and I wasn't able to make it to the funeral because of work. And so I wanted to let them know that I care. So I'm going to be, and then we both pick up. So we're both sitting in the parking lot. So I'm going to be bringing brownies and giving them to her instead of just a card, because I like to, I don't know, I think that food speaks to people. And so I'm going to be doing that. So that's another way to encourage. Just a nice, small, simple way to let her know that I see her, that I care, that I'm still a friend, that I'm so sorry that her brother died. This is the mom of the son that I used to babysit. Not the niece. She doesn't really know me. But anyway, so that's just another way that so I guess I encourage people, Kara, a lot through food. I'm figuring that out as we're talking.
Yeah, it's amazing what we figure out when we start talking.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so true. And um, and it's, well, to piggyback a little bit earlier on what you said about how you feel guilty about, oh, we're not doing that anymore, and I'm doing this on a smaller scale. I think we always have to remember, and this is something that I have been learning more, recently, that I really feel like, that has been ministering to me, is that we sometimes, I think, without even knowing it, at least in my case, sometimes you get Elijah syndrome, like, for instance, if someone has a ministry and they work with the homeless, right? And then they're like, okay, I'm not going to work with the homeless anymore, but I really want to focus on this particular person A, right? Which has nothing to do with homeless or anything else, but you just really feel like the Lord may be guiding you to, like, walk along that person during their particular journey. And you're like, oh, but I'm walking away from that and everything else. And I think we kind of think, well, what's going to happen to them? I feel guilty for not doing that. It's like, God is like, you know what? I got so many more people like you. I have an army of Christians, right? It's like, if you go minister to that person I'm leading you to, I got other people here, who can pick up where you left off. I got other people that's been waiting in the wings and everything else. These people will be taken care of, but for right now, I'm moving you here, and I'm moving somebody else up. And I think sometimes we feel like if we don't do it, that it won't get done. And God just laughs and he's like, I got so many more like you.
I am glad. I'm so glad that you said that, because just last night I got a text from one of my bosses, one of my many bosses, and said, hey, do you want to pick up more hours, or are you tapped out? So my first thought was, oh no, she needs me. If I don't do this, what's going to happen? It's going to all fall apart, not because she's not a good manager, but because she needs my help. So if I say no, I'm going to feel terrible. So I asked my husband, I said, hey, I said, do you want me to pick up more hours? He goes, no. No. And I said, okay, so he's my voice of reason. Thank you, God, for giving him to me. So I texted her back. Well, so then I texted a friend and I'm like, hey, do you want to become a this? Because there might be an opening. It's not a lot of hours, but maybe. And she was like, not at this point. That's not enough hours for what I need. And I'm like, oh, okay, then I won't tell her anything. So I wrote back. It took me like an hour to write back. So I wrote back and I said, I'm really sorry. I'm tapped out. I love what I do now, but I can't put any more in. And she writes back within literally like 30 seconds. Okay, no problem. There's like 3 or 4 other people that would be willing and very good at it. And I'm like, oh, so God, I just wasted 2 hours of my life worrying by telling her no when you had somebody else planned this whole time. But it really freed me up. Like I'm so glad he allowed that lesson. Because,
yes.
like you said, I needed that reminder that the sun does not rise and set on me. Not that I think that I'm all that in a bag of rocks, but I always feel guilty if I'm not willing to step in and help. But there is only so much I can do. And I'm not always the best person for the job. Like, I'll be brutally honest. I'm just not.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes our what's the word? I don't want to use the word assignment, but our journey with that particular thing is over, right?
Right.
For whatever reason,
Isn't that
we may not,
hard?
yes, yes, yes. Because sometimes we've been in it for so long, and it's like, but Lord, this is but I really feel like you're moving me here, but this is what I've been doing, and everything else, and it's like I know, but now I'm moving you. We're going to pivot, to use today's vernacular. It's like, we're going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to move you here right now, and you're like, but what about? But what about them? But what about that? But what about, And he's like, well, what about them? I got this. Like, you do what I told you to do, and I got the rest, okay? And I think sometimes we forget that, that so many times, and I can't, I'm racking my brain where that is, in the scriptures where Elijah is kind of like, oh, Lord, I'm all alone. It's just me fighting the good, doing everything, and everything else. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like there's several, I got other people just like you, and everything else. And so, and it's just, I think that's a reminder always to us too, that and I think when we get into something, being in it too long, we tend to think that way. Mm-hmm. That if I don't do it, then it's not going to get done, and God is like, what are you talking about? Like, right. I got like so many people that I'm going to put in that thing. And so it releases you. You use the good word there, freedom, right?
Yeah.
You have that freedom to where you're like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah. So go ahead and do what I just told you to do, and, and do it in peace, because I got this. I'm a big guy. I can handle all of this, and everything else. And it's like, oh, okay. Because then you don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to feel shame or anything, because we know God has it all under control. And so when he's asking you to change or to pivot or to move into a different direction, we can do it in freedom. We can do it in peace. We don't have to lose sleep over it, or anything else. Like, oh my goodness, what are they going to do now? Oh wow, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not what it's about. It's, being excited about the new adventure that God's about to take you on, and knowing that those people that you spend so much time investing in and caring about and ministering to are going to be just as taken care of as when you were there, because you're resting in the Almighty God.
Yes. Well, and I love what you said there about the joy and the excitement, because while I think that we can still sometimes, God can call us into a season where we're encouraging other people and it's hard, and it's not necessarily fun, and it's not necessarily exciting, but we know that we're supposed to be there, that we are his hands and feet for that season.
Yes.
I also firmly believe, and this is one that I have to remind myself of constantly, that if we are stressed out, if we are tapped to the max, if we can't even schedule bathroom breaks, that is not God. God has
Right.
not put us in bondage like that. Not to say that it's not going to be a busy season, but God does not put us in bondage like that. So if you are that busy and that busy being a blessing or being a whatever to any, you kind of might need to have a conversation with God again and say, okay, God, is this just me not listening to you and not quite getting the memo? Or am I really supposed to be this busy and I need to remember or I need to learn how that your grace is sufficient for me? Like, because I was having a conversation with my prayer partner last week and I was like, oh my gosh, she could just tell like my whole, I was at a Mach 10 stress level. And I was like, I just don't know how to, I don't know what to give up. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. And we just started praying and she's like, Sherry, I don't think this is from God. I don't think that this is the way that he wants you to live. This is not really a very good testimony to other people. And so the more I started praying and the more I, when we started in with our prayer time, I could just feel his peace wash over me. And I knew at that point that he had called me to do some things this year. And I knew that it was going to be a busy weekend, but I also knew there was an end in sight. And I'll tell you what, not only was there an end in sight, but he gave me complete rest so that on Monday morning when I woke up, I felt wonderful. So did I have like a really busy 1 or 2 days? Did I have a really busy 1 or 2 months? Yes. But there was an end in sight. It wasn't forever. It wasn't, I wasn't being disobedient by working as hard as I was because I really felt like God needed me to get it done yesterday. But he rewarded it. And by giving me time back, like I gave him my time and maybe I didn't do it in the right way so that I was more stressed out than I should have been. But then he gave it back to me tenfold. And the rest and the peace that he gave me in the amount of time that I had to rest was like a whole vacation. Like it was wonderful. All in
He redeemed
24 hours.
the time in a way.
Thank you. Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. There's
And that is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sherry.
No, go ahead, because what I'm going to say is going to be completely different, and I don't think we should be done with this particular part of it. So go right ahead.
Oh, well, no, actually, I was just going to say, oh, excuse me, but yes, I was just going to say, you were talking about how you were just, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing you were doing, but that it was just a very stressful thing, you know, and everything else. And so people are out, probably saying, yeah, guys, but how are we to encourage others who are going through similar situations like that, you know? And I think for me, one of the things I love to do, or I like to do, is just point people back to the scriptures, because to me that is just one of I find them very encouraging. And so my hope is that others will find it encouraging too, like when they're going through something, and one of my favorite ones is like the Matthew 11:28, and it's also known as the Great Invitation. And it just says, come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I just love that. And I think a lot of times in our Christian journeys, we forget Matthew 11:28. Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I think that a lot of times that we just forget, and I kind of, and there's other scriptures that talk about it too, and it's someone cast your cares upon me and everything. And I think sometimes we get so into that, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it thing, that we just don't say, you know what, Lord, this is too much for me right now. I am just going to lay this anxiety, this stress, this worry, this problem, that child, this person, that job, everything tied to it and or those people. I am just going to just hand them over to you. And I'm just going to ask for your rest, for your Sabbath rest, and just, that peace that just, that we were talking about. And the previous month's episode last month when we were talking about on the podcast about anxiety and the anxiety series. You know, it just that peace that surpasses all understanding is just definitely one of those scriptures that, along with many that talk about just handing it over to God and or the care, the worry, or the weight of it, as it talks about those who labor and are heavy laden. And I think sometimes when we realize we don't have to do it alone, it so helps us. It releases the burden. Do you feel that way too, Sherry?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this, I think this kind of goes along with it, and maybe it kind of veers a little in a different direction. But one thing I want to encourage people with too is don't forget your family. Keep your family first. And by that, I mean, when you are encouraging other people, make sure that you've taken care. Our church has a saying, and they don't want you to serve if there are issues in your family that need to be dealt with first. If it's going to be a burden or a hardship or a difficulty on your family, then they don't want you to serve because your family has to come first. And I think that they also say that just in general, that you can't take care of other people and you can't, like, the country can't take care of other countries if our country is unhealthy. A government can't take care of other governments if their government is unhealthy. A business can't take care of other businesses if their business is unhealthy. You can't take care of other people when you're struggling yourself. So make sure that your family knows that they are number one. They are your first priority. And it doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you won't necessarily not have dinner with them every night. You know, you might have to skip having dinner with them if you're at the hospital helping a friend, or if you're having coffee with somebody and praying with them. Like, you know, that's not what I mean. I'm not saying that you only are with your family, but I'm saying make sure that your family's taken care of. So if you have to skip dinner one night because you have to work late, because you're, you know, at somebody else's house because they just had surgery, whatever the case may be, then make sure you ordered pizza, or make sure you have something in the crock pot, or make sure whatever it is. And when I talk about like the brownies and the banana bread, I would always make 4 loaves of banana bread so that my family was taken care of. They knew that they were loved. They knew that they were important to me. And then I would give the other 2 to the other people. Same with the brownies. I make sure I have enough so that my family gets some. They each get 1. And the people that I'm blessing get the rest. So it's just always, it's important to make sure that your family, that it's a family thing and not just, oh, that's mom doing that again. Mom cares more about so-and-so than she does about us. Mom's gone every single night of the week, and we don't even get help with homework because, you know, there's nothing to eat in this house because mom is too busy doing stuff with other people. Or dad, you know, it goes the same way. So just always make sure God wants us to take care of our family and love our family. He blessed us with them. He loaned them to us. Let's make sure that we treat them that way.
Absolutely. And it's definitely one of those things where you may have a job and or a profession like Sherry was just talking about. Heck, you may even be like a pastor or someone who that the church and or the congregation and or the administration of the church requires a lot of your time and or travel. You may have to travel a lot. And if, you know, like for instance, your spouse isn't able to travel with you, that can, you know, cause some issues as well. However, so it's like you can't necessarily physically be there, but that doesn't mean you can't be there, if that makes sense. And
Yep.
you can still let them know that you love them and that you care and that they are a priority by the little and small things that you do. And I think we talked about this in a previous podcast, Sherry. And I'm not exactly sure which one, but you guys can probably go back and find it. And I think it's like biblical marriage was the one that we talked about. So yes, I think it was in biblical marriage, and where we talked about the different things that you can actually do to where if you're one of those careers, police officer, doctor, lawyer, to where, you know, clients and patients and criminals, you know, and or your congregation may take all your time or require time because those are the type of people that are sometimes on call, right?
Right.
And you could be in the middle of like a romantic dinner, and then um, I was going to say their beeper goes off, and I'm aging myself if I say that. Not their pager goes off, but their phone rings, right?
Right.
And they're
Right.
like, they have to leave at that particular time. You know, you can't, if you're an obstetrician, you can't just say, oh, she's going to have to wait till my, my anniversary dinner is over.
Right.
you
Right.
know, or something like that. So, um, but so sometimes you like have to like interrupt those things, but it doesn't mean that you still don't let them know that they're a priority, that they mean a lot to you, and everything else. So it's not necessarily what you have to do, it's how you do it. And again, if you guys just want more tips about that, just listen to the biblical podcast episode that we did. And I think we shared a lot more tips on just different ideas and things that you can do for your spouse if you just happen to be in one of those very busy professions, and that you could get a call at any time, even during vacation, right? So,
Right.
and you know how hard that could be. You saved up with your family, and you're going on this. Kids are excited, and you're there, and your phone rings, and it's like, right? Then you spend hours trying to deal with a quote unquote crisis, with job or something like that, and or a person, and so that can be, a little bit things. So it's not like what you do, because sometimes we're called to do those type of positions for a time. It's how you handle it, and you can still make them feel like you're there, you're present, they mean something to you, all in the way you handle it. So yes, that's all I want to say on that point, Sherry.
Well, I have absolutely I could seriously go on for hours talking about how to encourage others. I love how you brought up the scripture. That is so important. There's really nothing more, because when we talk about um, our theme verse, which is John 16:33, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you will have peace. In the world will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Jesus tells us right then, he's the way to peace. He's that avenue. So there's nothing better than to point people back to God. And, you can do it. You can do it as a spur of the moment when life hits a friend or a coworker like a tsunami, whether with a death, a job loss, a bad diagnosis, a troubled teen, whatever. But it's also a really great idea to just ask God if there's 2 or 3 people that He would want you to have a Bible study with, so that you could plant those words in your heart, so that not only do you have them available and ready to give to people that need them, but also so that they're ready for you to comfort you when bad things happen to you. So that is probably the best way to encourage others, that and through prayer. But I think Kara and I both could go on talking about this forever. But instead, I would like to encourage you to come back next week, because we're going to expand on it and talk a little bit more about how to be a blessing to people. Not just how to encourage them, but how to be a blessing to them. So go to Kara's website, kararhunt.com, and check out her new book, Paper Dolls. Check out all the other exciting things that she's updating and doing over there. Please come over to my website, SherrySwalwell.com, CherisWalwell. I have a new membership that I am so excited to share with people. Jesus in the Everyday. Go over there, check it out, see what you think. Let me know, and I would love if you would want to join that family that I'm getting started. So next week we're going to talk about how to be a blessing to people. If you need encouragement or prayer in the meantime, email us at cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. If you want to join our Facebook group and join that community, head over to Facebook. It's Cheer Up Podcast over there. And until then, continue to have a blessed week this week, and we will talk to you next week.